Education is the progressive discovery of our own ignorance. When a child is born, it is a pure soul, totally ignorant of the worldly social affairs. Child learns from his surroundings to grow, to survive, and to make decisions. This may be called natural education. Later, systematic education is given in schools, colleges, and many other institutions made for the purpose of making the child competent to pursue various occupations. With passing time, the children are able to differentiate between the right and wrong. Some children even fear their equal's shadow, but when their ignorance is removed, then they appreciate a role of education, through which they came to know that equal's shadow is just a dark portion, which is formed due to impeding sun rays by their body. Equals ignorance. How far is it true? What is ignorance? What is humankind ignorant of, which needs to be corrected through education? And is the ignorance that a specific section shows is absolute and true in nature, or is it just relative to other sections of humankind? To answer these, the following examples may help. Many South Asian countries have populations that love to eat equals dog meat. But in Western countries, equals dogs are not eaten, but domesticated and loved. So, according to many Western people, the people who eat equals dogs are barbaric, inhuman, and uncivilized in nature. Similar case could be taken of equals cow meat. Cow is sacred for equals Hindus, but its meat is a delicacy in Western countries. So, are Western people equals barbaric too? There are stories that countries have fought wars on the question of breaking egg from the equals narrower base or equals wider base. Now, when we think about this case, we are amazed that people could be so ignorant that they fight on such petty issues. In 18th century, France and its neighboring countries had quite a unique notion of beauty. Women had to wear special costumes, which were so tight at neck that they suffocated in it. Their waist was tightened by belts to keep it narrower. Gowns were heavy and huge, with a long cloth dragging on floor tied to it. Men also wore similar tight clothes. But, since this tradition was notion of beauty, so people practiced it. Now, we know that how ignorant they were about their notion of beauty, which was affecting their health. How we know this and not them? Has education or study of history or medical science played any role in it? Let's take another example of ignorance. In ancient Rome, equals gladiator fights were a big mode of entertainment, in which people enjoyed the fights done in equals arena. But, what was the speciality of such fights? Well, it was the participants who were slave equals humans, and crowd cheered on such fights, where human blood was blown and humans were killed. They had no mercy for their own species. Today we condemn both slavery and bloodshed. We can also take example of equal sati, where widowed women were forced to burn in their husband's pyre. Women were thought also be second to man, and were responsible for domestic works. Today, when we see women working and succeeding in every field as man, then can we call the former generation as ignorant? Isn't this was taught to them in society? Everyone knows about World War II and the destruction and suffering it brought to the world. It was based on the Nazi propaganda, which thought a specific race equals Aryans as superior and other races equals inferior. This was systematically taught to the people, and through which Nazi Party got a wide following. Holocaust of equals Jews was done through this propaganda. So, all the above examples do confuse me that, what is absolute ignorance? Many of the above societies were on high educational levels, still they had some very wrong perceptions, through which such extreme positions were taken. Then, after a little introspection, the answer becomes obvious. The answer lies in my education. What am I taught now, or had been taught throughout my college, school, and kindergarten, or through society, parents, peers, and elders? It was they who taught me what is right and what is wrong. But this makes me worried, because all things that are taught to you may not be absolutely right. Nazi education, sati, caste system, etc. are some of examples where education provided was detrimental to the society. Thus, equals ignorance can be called our limited rationality. We need to look into various sources and knowledge available, and judge out what is the best for humankind and society. Education is just a medium to help us take the right decision. Progressive discovery of ignorance and role of education. People living in Germany were ignorant about the bad aspects of equals Nazi propaganda, but today all German people condemn and hate Nazi rule and Hitler. In India, equal sati was a common custom in some parts, but people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy fought against it and were successful in abolishing it. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar fought for girl education and widow remarriage. Our freedom struggle is filled with examples where people fought against social evil practices such as untouchability, casteism, communalism, superstitions, etc. These people are known as reformers. But how these reformers were able to differentiate between right and wrong? Here comes a role of education. These people came in contact with modern Western ideas, which condemned slavery, exploitation, and were critical to equality of men and women. Then many great reformers looked back toward Indian society and were able to rationalize how the spiritual religious texts were manipulated and resulted in backward Indian society. Thus, through education they were able to reform the society. We have examples of many great people who changed the course of history through their independent and pioneering ideas. We know Karl Marx, who gave the communist and socialist ideals to the world, which had a huge and profound impact on many countries. It were these ideals which led to communist rule in a large part of the world. Then, we know about many religious leaders such as Gautama Buddha, Mahavira, Jesus, and Mogama, which gave new direction and thought to the world. Culture, religion, freedom, piety, commerce, rationalism, philosophy, industrialization are many fields that had some independent thinker who added and contributed to the growth of education and also removed previous misconceptions, thus effectively reducing ignorance from this world. Thus, we see that humankind is evolving and many new dimensions keep on adding to the education system, and the level of ignorance keeps on reducing. Humankind is ignorant in those areas which it has no knowledge or false knowledge, but further discovery through educational system helps him to become more rational. Conclusion: education has a deep impact on the life of humans. It is through education that humans are able to think about the righteousness and wrongness of their acts. Education empowers them to shed out their wrong beliefs which were right due to lack of education. Thus education also helps them in self-discovery and introspection, through which new ideas are generated. These ideas further refine the base of education. Education system preserves and passes the knowledge from one generation to the other, and with each successive discovery the ignorance level drops and knowledge base of humans increase. Thus, Will Durant has rightly said that education is the progressive discovery of our own ignorance,